Manhood, brought you in part by Reboot, Superfarm, and Solomon's Bespoke.
Welcome to yet another episode of Manhood, where we always aim to be better as brothers. And one thing I just want to make sure that's lucidly clear: we're not speaking on behalf of all men. We are few men speaking to all men. And one of the topics that really is going to take some time here today and a lot of understanding, and I'm sure I'm going to be very pensive throughout this discussion, is this topic. Do men display masculinity among men different to how they display masculinity among women? Mm-hmm. Let me repeat that. Do men display masculinity different among men to how they display their masculinity among women? So we're going to go straight into it. To my right, Johan Iudike, behavior change consultant or specialist. To his right, really happy to have here, Keron Niles, lecturer at the University of the West Indies. Some may know him as the third member of Freetown Collective. He's the man behind the scenes. And to his right, KG, music producer. So, gentlemen, do men display masculinity different among men than women? So, like, basically, if a woman was here now, would we...
Men start to smile at this stuff.
Start to smile, yeah, because it's almost like we're introspecting and realize we're guilty of it.
Yeah. But I don't know if guilty is the correct word.
Might be a strong word, I agree.
Right, but it is true, because when you're among men, so I could say when you're among your brethren, could be different when you're among men who you don't really have a close relationship to, versus you're among women who you're related to, and then even women who you may want to impress in some way, right? So you would show masculinity. Now I thinking personally, right? I could, and I thinking with other men, because sometimes you know when a man wife on the phone, you know, when a man talking to a girl versus a man. Even something simple as, well, I talked to my friend last night. It's not a man he talking about. Because if it was a man, I talked to my brother, I talked to my boy. Right. Yeah. So, and even the way they say friend, you know it's something different.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there is some distinct differences. My first thought is it authentic? That's what I do in the introspection for myself.
This is exactly what I was, from hearing you say that, immediately I asked myself, is the topic really, are we ever being our authentic self? Right. Or are we chameleons? Do we change with the environment? So I'm because if you've now broken it down apart from masculinity among men and among women, you've now broken it down to even further subdivisions and subcategories into how do we appear even amongst men. That masculinity is different. So if I know you, I might free up a lot more, and if I don't know you, I'm pretending to be someone I'm not, or I'm playing to the room. So if we're doing that in several areas, are we ever really being our authentic self? Who really is Johan say? Who's Keron? With the real Keron, please stand up.
It have layers and it have nuance, right? So when I was in university learning psychology, they used to teach us about backstage behavior and front stage behavior. And backstage behavior is who you really is now. Like in your rawest form now, is the dirty room in your house that you don't really want to show nobody. Front stage behavior is who you want people to believe you are. It's who you display, stuff like the finished product now. Like it's intrinsically performative. And even in that, how I perform or how I display myself front stage for a female, particularly as a man that is attracted to women, totally different when I'm with my brethren, and even front stage different and backstage very different. You understand? Like how you show somebody who you really is. You understand? Like when you're inviting somebody in, that totally different. And what makes the Caribbean Twin Islands so special and so unique is we are a festival economy in some ways now. So there was a theorist that said that in festivals, people often mask to unmask, which means they put on a mask to be who they really want to be now. So every carnival, you're putting on all these costumes so you can really free up yourself. But the free up version of yourself is who you really want to be. You understand? So you hit the streets and you're lackery, you're wild. You're really, you understand? You're going crazy. But that's really you. Like you really want to be that way. But from Monday to Friday, You gotta wear your little suit and tie. You gotta be presentable because the society says this is how you have to be.
So, Keron, you're conforming to society, and a lot of times you have to be able to survive or to excel in particular environments. Sometimes, I mean, nobody's saying you don't have to be your authentic self, but sometimes that alter ego is it could be a form of protection. It could be so many other things to hide the real self. And I ask myself, people say sometimes, even whether you're 30 or 40, they say you still don't know who you are, boy. And I ask myself, like a book, page keeps turning, life still keeps happening. So do we ever really know? Do we ever really self-actualize? And so the question is, am I being my authentic self? Do I know who authentic self is? Because Carnival comes, I might take a drink, get slightly inebriated, and that allows me for a certain amount of reverence to wheelie, as we say, or put, because I have, at that point, my inhibitions are lost due to a little rum. You know, we are a social environment of where you're drinking. And so the question comes down to, am I actually saying this is not me, and or is this me? When you really could be saying
you still
don't know.
You know, because I've had people who still performing in Carnival. They still performing what people think they should look like in a carnival, in a fete on Monday and Tuesday.
Pressure to drink, all kind of thing.
They're still not being themselves. So what you're asking yourself is a good question. And the nuance part of it is, you see, we're talking about self, but we spoke about masculinity now. So it's not just KG, it's not just Keron or Johansi, but KG, Johansi, Keron, Robert, as a man, as displaying first what we think, because even masculinity is nuanced, you know. Yes, we could look at a dictionary meaning. Yes, we might have a certain close consensus of what masculinity is in the West, in San Fernando, in Shogunas. But even that, we have different opinions on it. And Robert and I may intersect with 9 things, but one thing he thinks is a man, I mightn't think is that.
I'm not going to ask her, like what does it come down to now? Like, what does masculinity really come down to? Because different cultures, you will realize that men look at masculinity so differently now. Like, some people might grow up in a home with a father who is very masculine, but he don't promote violence. You know, he will always tell his son, if somebody hit you, go and tell the teacher. And then we'll have another father who might go in the school and protect his son like a masculine father, but another masculine man might be like, masculinity is also intelligence now. We know there's running to violence. So I guess that, what is masculinity?
Well, it doesn't it also depend upon society and community. I give you some real examples. For me, examples. So I don't really drink. I drink alcohol, right? But
and I also say men, real men.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
You don't really drink, or you don't drink often.
I don't. Well, both. I don't. So I will go into a space. Right? Not many people know this, right? I went into a space once, and somebody was just like, "Do you want anything to drink?" And I was just like, "I don't drink." And they just said, "You should try this." And I tried it, and I was just like, "This doesn't taste like alcohol. It tastes good." It was berries. You understand? I was just like, I remember once I went into a space with a brethren of mine, and I say, "Well, do you think that actually tastes good?" And this whole thing is berries. He said, "But that's a woman drink."
Girl drink.
That's a girl. Yes, you know what I mean. That's a girl drink. And then I went somewhere else, and because I don't drink, I was just like, "Oh, you're smarter," and the whole place cracked. That's for children. You know what I mean? That's not and it's like you're a big hardback man. You understand? And so you know what I mean.
So you're not displaying the qualities of masculinity.
I now have to perform in a certain way. I have to be like, okay, well, you know, where's the drink that will make my hair stand up now? You know, like, where's the goat weed? You know what I mean?
Take a rude boy or white oak or something like, or punching.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I've often, since especially manhood starts, tried to figure out what really is masculinity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? Because what is femininity, and then versus who am I? Because I think now there's clear separation sometimes, even between, now we have difference between man, woman, masculine, feminine, and then somewhere between who I am. Because the only conclusion I am coming up with is, was a man, what is masculinity? Truth.
I was just going to
honesty,
say,
but then that is not a masculine thing. That is anybody. That's a human thing now.
But we have had, Johan say, I mean, it's over 50 or 60 episodes. So we've had a lot of conversations where we've asked guests on the show, what is a man to them? And a lot of times, if you were to summarize that and to put it, truth is a huge part of it as one of the traits of being masculine, because without that, then you're not really being masculine.
Truth, what exactly you mean by truth?
So being true to oneself. So you're like, if you're like one of his favorites, if you like another woman, or if you cheat on a woman, you're supposed to confess it, right?
I didn't say that in its entirety, right?
You see the semantics? You see the semantics in its entirety, right?
It's
In
not
its entirety. Just like you don't drink often.
I don't drink often. I don't drink at all, actually.
Being true to oneself, meaning that you're being authentic, you're being who you are with no apologies.
What if a man on the other side, where he don't like women, he like men, we just saying, but he's being true to that? Is that still being masculine?
Well, notice I said that being truthful or being true to oneself is one of the traits. It doesn't mean that makes you masculine.
Right.
Another part of masculinity in that authenticity is ownership of your own actions, and being unafraid to not only justify, not that you have to justify, but to stand. It all comes down to truth. To stand in that truth and to own what happens, and not live in victim mentality.
Yeah.
Right? And then we could come down to other traits, which are coming down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where the person needs to provide security, hunt. It is a culmination of things. But I think what it really boils down to is truth and ownership of oneself, and not living in victim mentality.
So let me break this down a little bit, because I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, right? So I went to fix my car 2 months ago. A month and a half ago. And the man started off talking, one of the men in the garage started talking about how we get hit in school and he never let anybody hit him again, right? And I just said, you're going to hit anybody? And he's just like, I said, well, I mean, you're going to hit anybody. He's just like, and somehow it ended up on hitting women. You know what I mean? And I was just like, you can't do that, ever. And he's just like, no. He said, and he watched me and say, oh, so she just be on top and you just be underneath. You understand? And just straight off the bat. You understand? So the conversation kind of went from just talking about him getting hit as a child
to the impression you are man.
To a impression that I don't mind. Because I saying you can't ever hit women.
Yeah.
Because I went on national TV once and said, never lay a hand on a female. Like, walk away if you have to, get out the house if you need to. And I've had men come to me and say, but you don't understand. You do understand. But they will never say it in the presence of another woman. Huh? That's what
right.
that's what talking about. The performance. The performance, how we perform around other men, is like, they will never say this usually around. Like, if you have women in the space, they're going to be like, Keron, you don't understand them women, and them just look for their thing. I'm not saying that women don't provoke men. And this is usually me and men only in the room. When it's men only, I could say, I understand men get provoked. But you can't tell me that you are a grown man saying that, I can do this and I can do that, and you can't control self. Right. You understand? Which is why you're talking about to yourself tonight, won't self be true. But you also need to be in full control of this vessel. You understand?
But what you're assuming is when the men say they hit any woman, that they're not in control of themselves now. Because I gave 2 examples, right, of men I've worked with. One who lost control is I get provoked, so I just react, right? And I hit her in my reaction. Then have men who say I'm making sure and show her exactly what is going on. So the lash, right, was controlled and premeditated.
Right.
Right. So you see, I put in it that way because when we get nuanced with authenticity, authenticity don't really have a moral code.
Right.
Authenticity is who you are.
Right.
Right. So if a man say my moral code is I will never hit a woman, then you staying true to your moral code. And next man will say, I not allowing nobody to hit me, man or woman. That is your moral
And
code.
you hear that more often than not. I just not allowing nobody to hit me. From the time you hit me, I've heard people say my eyes roll back, I go into survivor mode, and I defending myself.
Man or woman.
Man or woman. It doesn't. No, because you even see it. There's a meme that I was looking up to yesterday, where a child hit the mother, and you could see the mother like they raise the hand, but not that she was going to hit the child, but it's the instant reaction, like somebody hit you in your face, and you go into it's a trigger, and you lash out, and that's what I'm saying. So I understand what you're saying about being out of control at that moment, but then are you repentant afterwards? And a lot of times it could be genuine at that
but
point.
he also saying that he's talking to men who are using the hitting as a form of animal conditioning, essentially, or conditioning their partner so that their partner knows the lines. Their partner know that if they cross a certain line, they're setting a boundary.
But that's just messed up.
Using violence to set a boundary, you understand? And this is a good segue into music. I should have seen. We, Freetown, went into a school. The school had some issues with violence. I understand? And they want us to come and talk about violence. And they said, these kids just listening to Trinidad Dread. And so we say, come on, they want us to come and talk about why Trinidad is bad. You understand? and usually, no, let's be honest, I think it's safe to say the Trinidad artists are predominantly male, right? Yeah. Predominantly. And they wanted us to come and talk, they wanted Muhammad and Lou, two men, to come and talk about why Trinidad is bad. This is what we did. We went and took a Trinidad artist, and they sang a song with us in the school, right? And the song was a positive song. And then we asked the artist some questions in front of the students. We asked them, how you feel about your mom? Like, you have a girlfriend? You sit your girlfriend? And do you always carry a weapon? Like, you're always packing? And the artist was just like, and do you use the word ever? And the artist was like, I do ever use the word I love my mom with all my heart. She's my queen. I do ever hit women. I don't own a weapon. And we're not out here shooting people. And you can see the eyes of these kids. And so I was the person collecting the data.
Eyes of the kids.
Eyes of the kids. They started to open. They started to look at him differently, you know. So, and I collected the survey forms after, and they were just like, we thought this was real out here. We thought that they was really living this life. We thought, and I wonder, what is it in somebody that makes them feel that it's okay to use violence to set a boundary? You know? And in my mind, is what you see modeled. And it can be modeled from a parent, model from another person you look up to, but also it can also be in the music that you're listening to, and you feel like, well, this is what I hear, this is what I see in my community, this is what I'm hearing, and this is what I'm going to live for. Right. And they literally thought that this man was out here, first of all, that he was always armed. That if anybody said anything, he would shoot them in the face. And I was reading these responses, and these kids are just like, none of it is real. It's just for money. And the man said, listen, I need to eat. This is what making any money.
It's stereotyped. And again, Keron, that's a conversation I think we've had several times, because, you know, one of the pet peeves I know that Trinidad artists have on producers is the fact that we go off on dancehall, right? And one of the analogies that I would hear with regards to that is that, yeah, we go off on dancehall and it's the same violence, but because Trinidad is singing violence, but it's one that we could relate with because it's home. It's like, oh, my, you know, are we, you know, is wanting to incite violence or speak about it, but it's not because I know those streets and I know these people and I know these different things, and I might call a name even in singing it, and that could get me into trouble. So there's a...
go off is a good go off, I mean, because I thought go off meant like we decry dancehall. So you're not saying that we say bad things about dancehall?
No, we go off on it as if we grew up on it.
Like
we love it. We grew up on it.
Yeah. Okay,
so I want to bring it back to when we talk about the masculinity, because you know when you said it's a performance, there's a couple things that people say that even in when we see some people parading in front of when the tourists come down, especially. I know we need to go to a break, so just to say that there's a thing called the peacock mentality.
Right.
So you see a nice they say a Caucasian, and all of a sudden you see people puff up their chest and they start to do a dance and
they wear the speedos.
They wear and all these different things because they're parading for somebody.
Right.
So I'm saying that the performance in front of a woman, right? And you say a performance in front of a man, yes, there are differences, and yes, we do behave, even among men, we behave differently in terms of those levels of masculinity. Because if I don't know you, I'm coming into an environment that, listen, I have to either check that the ego's in the room, the testosterone's in the room.
Yeah.
If I come into an environment that I mightn't feel that safe at the moment, I need a posture. You know, and you put up a particular thing until such point that you could come down and start to know your name. I realize you're cool people. You're not trying to cut my throat, and I mean that figuratively and
literally.
and literally. And there's so many other things with regards to why we behave.
But wait. So the reason why I made the point before was because of that word performance. The same thing that drives an artist to perform in a certain way, an artist knows his demographic.
Yeah.
I know my demographic too.
Right,
The same thing that drives an artist I don't care what genre it is. It could be a gospel artist. A gospel artist will never curse in public, even if they curse at home.
You know, they curse at home.
You understand? Because they have to
Just
perform.
like a Rasta.
Yeah, just like
KFC, and you know he's eat meat. Like, he won't go in and KFC for nobody to see him.
Exactly. We perform a certain way based on who we think our audience is.
Right,
You understand?
yeah. So
Anyway,
real
That
rich
is actually
conversation.
a very interesting
We
point,
coming back.
bro.
We coming back with our point, because the other one is, you know, when we talk about your audience and going to kids in schools, because another thing is sometimes you're taught by the same father or an uncle or anyone. Listen, let me hit before I'm hit. So if you see somebody coming at you, clock them first,
yeah.
so that you set those boundaries. So as you mentioned, what you call it, violence boundaries.
You know, using violence to set
Boundaries, and that's taught from an early childhood. But we take a short break. We have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, man. Welcome back to Manhood. That was actually a very interesting point, bro. I never see it in that way, as in the sense of even me in the Trinidad industry. I mean, me and Robert and Nuance talk about this so many times with the way how we grew up as inner city youths and that kind of vibes, and we always had to defend ourselves. But with the music now, I never look at it in a way where we was literally performing because of the demographic who was listening to us now. So if KG was doing quote unquote soft man music, that is exactly how I would have looked at the people who were probably looking at me as masculine. You know, so I had to keep up this image for the rest of my life, basically. But how you bring it to the forefront now, I kind of really believe that we are all putting on our front as men in some type of way now. Whether it be Trinidad, whether it's a Rasta man and you're pretending to eat meat, whether it's a soca artist and you're pretending that you're always happy, wherever it is, you know, we are basically men. So I think, and this is my view, I think that all men putting on fronts, basically. Masculinity is not real.
Probably in some aspects.
Yeah, some aspects.
Even today, I think we were having a discussion about something he said. And
With the WhatsApp messages.
Right, and he was saying, yeah, I have to, because I don't put pleasantries in WhatsApp, right? So I just tell you what I want.
Right. So
right?
don't put it in the context. I will just see a message, but KG hit me the same thing sometimes. You know, who's the guest? Topic. Right? And I'd be like, hey,
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have a convo.
No kind of small talk. You know, you're just straight in there. No kind of
Right.
Man to man
So
talk.
Robert was saying what you have to do and should do, and I was saying, but me doing that, me putting pleasantries is not my authentic self, because for me, a message is an efficient way of communication. So good morning, how are you going, and
But if you're
those
talking
things.
to a woman, you know, you're going to talk pleasant. You're going to be like, hi,
But
you know.
no,
I just
that,
wanna,
even for that,
You
no.
need advance?
somebody
No,
you
I
don't know that well.
you talk to a woman, boop, 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 boop.
If it's a new client,
Well, then
right?
your DMs ain't like
if
that.
it's a new client, I would say greetings, right?
Yeah.
And then say what it is going on.
You would say the word greetings.
Yeah, write greetings, right? And then,
A real
then put
old
out
man
it.
thing.
But once I do that once,
No, let's talk about
I
that
do
now.
it again.
Let's talk about the fact that just put greetings. You know, it's a coaching session. We here as men to talk be better as
all right.
brothers.
So authentically, instead of going through good morning, good afternoon, figuring out if it's afternoon or good day, or
Even
or,
high might be better.
Nah, I don't like hi. You see, when somebody say hi, I don't answer. You know,
I just say blessed.
because I don't know what I mean.
I just say blessed.
Whichever,
know what I
but
mean.
better than
Blessings.
greetings.
No, you see, all of those things I'm saying is I being my authentic self. Now, some people mightn't like it. You being your authentic self is saying good morning, good afternoon, etc. each man.
No, wait, hold on. Like wheel and turn, right? Wheel and come again. Is that being my authentic self? Because as KG said, are we ever really being our authentic self?
I don't think so.
I have learned, it's learned behavior, and in the environment that we're in, sometimes I just want to go, you're coming out,
And then you should do that.
But again, how it is perceived and received may impact the end result, which is not desirable to me.
Right.
So you start to learn a certain behavior that, oh, listen, in this environment, saying good morning, giving someone a greeting. Now, what I disagree with, where my authenticity comes in, is I'm not telling you morning. If I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to say good morning. I'm going to say it in a voice that I want you to have a good morning. I'm genuinely, in my authentic self, hoping that you have a good morning. I don't wish bad on anybody, you know. However, is it at everything that you do? Sometimes you just be like, Dan, I do even, which is why a lot of people don't even take phone calls now.
Right.
It's all about WhatsApp messages or voice tone, because bottom line is you don't want to talk to nobody. Yeah. You don't want to be going through that small talk on the phone.
Exactly the point now.
But being a man is also being intelligent, as I say. So if Robert messaging me, he would make sure and say good morning because it's man to man talking, you know. But you don't really want.
And that's why I say, if you don't want to do something, listen.
on a
physiological level, every time you do something you don't want to do, you send a stress signal to your nervous system, you know.
But I believe that, bro.
Right? So then, that is why we men is dead so young.
Yeah, stressing
because we stressing out yourself and lying and doing things you don't want to do. So every time you write a pleasantry that you didn't really want to say.
But Robert say he want to.
Sometimes, not all the times. So the times he don't want to and he do
I might want to write it, but I wish
slowly,
it.
You know. He killing himself slowly. And like all of us men.
So let me add a little bit more. Because I remember how I said that everybody performing. That's not necessarily a negative thing. Not necessarily. And hear me out. Because remember how I said have front stage and backstage behavior. People... If everyone was to see my backstage, I don't know if anybody would do that to me. You understand? Like people need to kind of, when people are being presented with a certain thing, like if you walked in the room and you didn't know I was a university lecturer, your response to me would be different. Than if I get introduced to you as the manager of Freetown, you're gonna respond to me differently than if somebody told you as a university lecturer. Right. I see it all the time.
So what?
So wait.
No, I want to say that's not a negative or positive because, for example, I mean, you know, Freetown, my boys, my partners. But what I say to is, I would be more open to conversation with you, hearing you the lecture and what you lecture about. That for me, or automatically, I'm more interested at that point. It depends where you are. So saying it as if, I just want to clarify that saying Freetown versus lecture doesn't mean that people will treat you better because you're Freetown manager.
It's not better or worse thing. It's just different.
It's just different.
And the environment matters. So let me give you a even deeper context, right? So I went to Bata Secondary Comprehensive School, right? And Bata Secondary come to school in Form 1, somebody was stabbed outside my classroom. And I mean, I have stories upon stories about weapons being pulled. There was fights all the time, and a lot of violence, right? And how that shapes you, like when I got into fights in the school, how that shapes your interactions, completely different. Like even how you try to present yourself to make sure you're not looking weak in the school now.
Yeah.
Versus I went Georgia for Form 6. Now in Bata, and I love Bata. In Bata Secondary Comprehensive, I remember being in Form 3, and man was talking about, all my male friends were saying the same thing. If I play football well enough, I'll be able to repeat in Form 5. You understand? So they're planning to fail in 2 years. You understand? That's the scene. I remember my senior come days. I remember straight up. And I remember when I was in Form 5, all the man was talking about was getting to repeat or finding a girl with a car. You understand? That was the flick. I remember that. When I got to George's, the men and them in Form 3 was saying, if I put in the work, I'm going to get a scholarship. And the whole environment and all the toughness I had learned from Barataria was almost meaningless now. So how I presented myself in Barataria was kind of fierce now. It was kind of like, it was harder. You understand? But when I went to George's, and that had very little value in the environment, I started to change. I realized I started to change how I presented myself. You understand? And best believe, how I present myself in a university setting, and how I present myself when I go to a concert, to present free time, totally different. And I realized.
But you're not stressed.
But not all the time. Sometimes it is stressful. And I'm not gonna. Let me tell you when it can be stressful. I have to go to sometimes UN meetings, negotiation meetings, and meetings with very senior professors who want to hear what I have to say about the topic. This is how ridiculous it can get in terms of presenting myself, right? Talking about functions backstage. If I leave my hair like this, the reason why my hair is like this is because I just came back from a conference. You understand? When I go to a conference and my hair is, and I don't shave, I look older. And I get much less questions and scrutiny of my work. When I cut my hair down, I look a lot younger. If you Google my name, you'll see what I look like when I cut my hair. And people, the questions that I get, are you sure you know what you're talking about? You have evidence to back this up? It is 10 times as much. I've tested it about 10 times now because I go to conferences all the time. So I realized that how I present myself, the environment matters, Jad. Like, so
there are societal influences where you're brought up, your environments can shape who you are and what you become.
And what you look at as a man.
And how you and your outlook as a man.
Yes.
Now, there's two things I want to present. One, I remember Will Smith saying that Will Smith is his alter ego, right? And that he had learned that he wanted, just like what you said, those fellas already 2 years ahead for football scores, and they have others that are trying to get into university. He had already presented that, listen, I need to be this look, I need to speak this way, I need to laugh at this moment, and he learned how to be acceptable in that particular environment and society wanted. So behind that, who knows who Will Smith is? Because now what has happened is over such a long period of time, he has now become that. But in becoming that, there's also elements of depression because you've isolated that probably child within and built up barriers and built up a whole, these fences around self who could really just be somebody totally left field. I don't know why I'm looking at that way, right? And my other left, right? And so apart from presenting that as a analogy, there's also the other thing where you said if people see your front or back, right? And we're talking figuratively here, right? Not physically, right? A lot of times, there's this thing about a brain fart. My grandmother would always say, put your brain in gear before you put your mouth in motion. A lot of times you're going through the process. If I sit down with my woman or anybody, I'm not going to go, man, I'd love to bang that woman there, boy, or something. There's just thoughts that just flow that are happening at the time, or you're trying to figure out. And while you're doing that, you don't want to expose yourself because I might say today, I want to do this and I feel like I'm this, and then tomorrow, which I'm entitled to do, change my mind, the page flips over onto another story. You might then be held to the fact that, but you said you want to do this, or this is who you are, and you're then judged accordingly.
That is actually a very good point too, Robert. Totally different from what he's saying, but it's a good point. But back to his point, as in the dynamics too have a lot to do with it too, as in the sense of how you went to Barataria and the violence you were seeing, and then you went to George's, and it's two different life. I could kind of relate to that, because sometimes you want to be a certain way as a man. That's our next thing too. You probably know who you want to be,
for real.
But the environment just not allowing it.
For real. I don't mind being transparent about this. Like, I remember when I stopped, because one of the things, I started hanging out with more girls and Georges than fellas, because I went on national radio, Jed. I remember there used to be a station called 98.9 Radio, because it was a youth station, right? I went and do this radio interview, Jed, about sex and sexuality, and I was the representative virgin, because I was a virgin, you understand? And I went on to talk about how I felt about being a virgin, not ashamed of it, whatever, but it was supposed to be anonymous. And at the start of the interview, the man was just like, want to welcome Keron to the studio. And I was just like, bro, what the hell is going on? And the man was just like, sorry. And he's just like, you have plenty of Kerons in Trinidad, you're safe. Yeah. I should have known because my voice, you have plenty of Kerons, but not my voice.
Why didn't leave? You still wanted to stay even though you call your name?
I didn't even think about leaving horse.
He was virgin to that as
I was,
well.
I was still, young teenager in Form 6 now. And I remember talking, and at the end of the interview, I was just like, we want to thank, Niles for coming through and I was just like, you didn't just call my surname at the end of the interview.
Yeah.
So he said my whole, when I walked in school on Monday morning, horse, the whole school knew I was a virgin. You understand? And the men and them, they hosted, like all the fellas and then they hosted a little intervention for me. This is like, we could introduce you to some girls and thing, some of the girls feeling sorry for you, Keron. You'll get you easy, Keron. Like, listen, the girls feeling sorry for you, just say which one and you're good to go. And I said, no, but I actually believe, spoiler alert, I got married a virgin at 29. And I said to them, that I actually chose to be a virgin. I didn't become a virgin due to rejection. I chose to be a virgin. And the response of these men, just like, why would you do this? Like,
you can't be yourself.
You can't. Well, so I know. You can't. So it changed.
No, but he still was himself,
In some ways,
he get talk, right? But if he still continue on being married, right, to the point, so he stayed himself. And that's what I would say would be, like, if we're using it loosely, the mark of a man. You decide what your boundary is, right? So I'm not saying whether you get married before sex or not. If your thing is you choose this, you stick to it, even if in the midst of people trying to tell you things, even in the midst of persecution, and that's what I think is what make a man.
But I did change my circles. I did hang out.
I was just gonna say that your tribe will change because you're now attract differently, and you'll find yourself like for like now attracting persons that you could probably go back to a sense of comfort. Where the discomfort would come in is if you wanted to remain true to that, but then are still associating with maybe persons who were, now going to ridicule you or laugh or shoo behind your back. But as long as you could remove yourself from that, they always say surround yourself with the 5 people in the direction you want to go.
Right. But the problem now, so the reason why, KG, and if you probably will find this really interesting, right? So right now what I find is so for me, as you're right, like my social circle began to change now because the men and them was just like, Keron on weirdness, Jed. Like, we don't understand why he being this way, right? But some of the girls, they got it, you understand? Some of the girls even felt safer around me for that because they know I wasn't trying to bang them, right? But what I realized, like, now, Jed, like, that natural kind of choosing your circle thing is put on steroids by algorithms, you understand? And so you choosing your circles is now put on steroids by an algorithm also surrounding you with certain information, certain communities, and again, bring it back to to performers and stuff, your audience and who naturally drawn to that to your messaging and to your look and to so let me just break it down like how I view it, right? How I view it is there's a reason why even for video shoots and for music we hire stylists based on who the audience is and based on who we think gonna listen to the song, gonna like the song. Right. You know what I mean? Is we're catering for a specific group of people, but we also cater for a specific group of people based on who responded to the last stuff. Right. So based on how people responded to the news that I was a virgin, I would know how to present myself the next time. Correct. You understand? So, and it's the same thing that we do right now in the music industry. When I present an artist, how did they respond to your last track? Like, what was the messaging in your last track? What was the, and I base how I am now based on how I get you the last time. And I feel like it's kind of like what was interesting to me is the extent to which that becomes two things, inauthentic or because really actually you're building some parts of your presentation based on audience feedback, and that's how artists behave. And part of that is healthy because they need it, but as an individual, I don't know the degree to which that is healthy. But the other thing that is important is if you don't have a community that is critiquing that, you will never critique the water that you are swimming in. Like say, if you find your 5 people, and none of those 5 people are just like, why are we walking in this direction? Nobody is critiquing it. Then you might find yourself, if you're not, and not to be extreme, if you're in a group of abusers, you will find yourself becoming more abusive without, because nobody's critiquing the behavior.
So I wanted to pause there because that's exactly the direction I want the conversation to go in the final segment. We're taking it down into a darker spot because it needs to be spoken about. Because in that display, in that performance of that said masculinity, it goes way left field to abuse.
Yep.
So we take a short break and when we come back, we delve into that land.
Welcome back to Manhood. We're discussing, do men display masculinity different among men than they display it among women? And we're having some very interesting conversations because one thing that I really interested in is the performance part of it, right? And then we're discussing authenticity now versus adapting to environment. And what I realized thus far is maybe you could perform and still be authentic once the cards that you're playing or the role that you're playing is still in alignment with you. So let me give an example. It's like I have a red blazer, a white blazer, and a black blazer, but I like all three. But if I wear a different one, I will get a different reaction from the different audiences as I go. So I choose. So in a sense, I am performing differently in that audience, but I'm still being authentic because all of those jackets is what I like. Yeah. But if there's a orange one that I don't like, but somebody say, you know what, this crowd really like orange. But I say, I really don't like that orange, you know. But if I wear it just because they like it, now I'm being inauthentic. Right? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, that is I find while you're bringing real valid points today.
That's what the show is about.
So even among women, if when men present themselves differently among their brethren, done differently among women, if you're still being true to yourself, then I think it's okay you're performing differently. But now if you're being something that you're not, well, then there could be a problem.
Yeah,
but within there, even you could still be masculine, but then that starts to go down the realm of leaders and followers. You know, sheeples. You know, you're a follower, but does that make you less of a man because you're following?
But wait, hold on, wait, tell us out. But there's also there are different things that motivate people's behavior. And you talked about leader and follower. He spoke about men that might be attracted to men, right? If no one else knows that they are going to behave very differently in a group of men in order to fit in. You understand?
They overcompensate.
They might overcompensate. They might try to be more masculine than everybody else to prove that they are a certain way. Yeah. You understand? Similarly, if I am hanging out, and I like this point that he made earlier, if I'm hanging out in a group and I see a very attractive woman there that could potentially, be single, how I behave around her is going to be different than if she wasn't in the room. And even stuff like slack talk, even stuff like men who making inappropriate jokes, you understand? My behavior, and my tendency to say
when you say
things,
you mean specifically you, okay, because certain men could still behave like a jack.
Yeah. in those circumstances, anybody can behave in any way, right? But hear me out, right? I was trying to figure out the other day, because I was trying to figure out why so many different groups of women, when I speak to them, each of them know at least one man who's an abuser. But in all of my male friend circles, none of them know men that are abusers. None. Like I can't point out one man that I can say, yeah, he's an abuser, or he's hit women. But we have a 1 in 3 statistic in the country where 1 in 3 women experience abuse of some kind. So somebody, and the predominant perpetrator is male. So somebody had to be hitting these women, and I studying to myself,
who is the man?
Who is these men that hitting these women? Like where they coming?
So there's a few people in your circle. So you're asking yourself, are you seeing like for like trait, but you just haven't.
But how would an abuser, right? Because I'm thinking now, okay, if an abuser being authentic amongst the brethren, right? Because you saying you don't know any, but I've heard men especially in FETMAT circles, right? I've heard men say already, they mightn't say to everybody, but I've heard men talking to other men say, well, and they say kind of apologetically, but they're saying, well, and I end up hitting her, you know.
Right.
Right, I've heard that already.
Not in
Right,
my
so
circle.
there
You
wasn't.
never hear that, right? You never hear
So
somebody say, no.
it wasn't. They wasn't talking to the group, but
Yeah.
it's things I've overheard.
Yeah.
Right. So as saying, if an abuser is being his authentic self, is that something that he would really come and tell his brethren?
The only times I've seen somebody tell his brethren that he went to hit somebody is if a woman publicly does something to humiliate that
Yeah,
guy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he needs to show the
Like
other
if you say,
men.
boy, I catch my girl cheating and I went on her phone, I feel like going wet she up tonight. You know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, because brethren do me that already. But another thing too, as we are saying, I believe that men are very fake because, like for me, for instance, I have a lot of associates, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be in the music industry, wherever. I know the kind of people in the industry, right?
Mhm.
Who on drugs, who there's who beating woman, all kind of thing, who not taking care of the trend. But I am a very stand-up type of person, so I just talk one way, right? I have one type of conversation, which is positive energy, intelligence, being a real man, all these different things. So the people who would come around KG, they would know that he only stand for one kind of energy now. So when they come around me now, they will talk about certain things and act a certain way and pretend like if they don't beat woman and they don't smoke coke and they don't do this and don't do that. But then I ain't stories about all how they doing the worst things. So men are followers, I believe that, and who they are wrong is who they is more lean to. If you're
They
wrong a
morph into
pastor,
that person,
you
yeah.
pretend like if you don't sin. If you're wrong a bad man, you pretend like if you're the baddest man out there. And I just see it constantly, you know, men. That's why I want to know what is masculinity, because if everybody, well, quote
But
unquote,
definitely,
everybody,
what you know, say
you know?
if them men is why I would say no.
Yeah.
Because if a man molding himself
Yeah.
into to try to impress somebody,
Yeah.
definitely not. I would say that is not masculinity, because it's a difference.
never be.
It's difference versus. Let me use the example we were talking about with the WhatsApp, right? I say I don't like to say pleasantries, but I was giving you the example. Somebody told me, say, Johan, say, I know you don't like pleasantries, but I like pleasantries. So when you're talking to me, tell me a pleasantry now. And I respect that, because what the person did is they respect me, and I and the least I could do is respect them. So when I talk to them, I say, good afternoon, and we both have a little smile about it now. And I would say that is being a man, because you still decide to stand up for who you are, but you could respect somebody else and their boundaries, their requests. No, I could have said no too. I could say no. You see this pleasantry thing, that is not me. But at the same time, you're still being honest to yourself. And I think that is really what it is being a man, because around my brethren, I might, let me say, I just use an example, might cuss, right? But if I think the woman I trying to impress
don't like cursing,
right, don't like cursing, I wouldn't curse. Is that being authentic or not? I'll ask that first.
No.
No.
That's why I come back down to I personally believe from this conversation. I personally believe from this conversation that the majority of men are fake.
Because
You're artificially adapted.
If you tell her, I just cuss, you know, but I know you don't like cuss, so I'm not going and cuss on you.
That's different.
That's
What
different.
about-
Right, so here the
Yeah.
difference, right?
So you're saying,
all
I
the
respect you, I respect that you don't like it, but I am of that, but I will not do it around you, because I know that, you know, she may then turn around and say, but why do you cuss, and try to be a therapist in other ways. But the point is, I think that you've been open with her to let her know this is who you are, who you were. You're not saying you're proud about it, you know.
Yeah.
You're not saying I am proud I cuss, or I am proud I do this.
I just won't curse wrong you.
You're just letting her know that this is up until this point, this is who I have been. And
right,
you know,
and that I think is the difference.
Yeah, that's fine. People don't curse around me either. People always say, Keron, we know you hate when people use obscene language, so they just say
you're on the wrong show, buddy.
But what
Yeah,
about this part of the thing too? 'Cause I don't think we touch on this. What about women stating what is a real man also? Like a woman telling Robert, you have to pay the bills, you have to take care of this, you have to take care of that. If the tire bursts in the car, you have to fix it. All these kind of manly things. But you know to yourself, you don't have these quote-unquote skills. Like you probably can't change a tire, or you probably not making a certain amount of money to pay the mortgage on your own. And because women also dictates what is a man too now, because we have to listen to women at the same time.
Is he wrong one for you?
You know, what about that part of the
Yeah,
thing?
I think
Is he wrong one? Because if you can't be authentic self, no authenticity, as you say, KG, if I can't change a tire, now I could either
Are you a man?
I could either want no, I can't change the tire, just FYI. But my manliness to somebody, now I've been called an alpha male in many circles. Now, that might be, like you said, if I go in a different environment, a different, a totally different environment, my alpha might be actually down here. I might be beta in a certain case because I am now going into a big environment where I now have to probably stand up a bit taller. Now I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'4", right, or 6'3". And when I go into a certain environment, I see people taller than me. All of a sudden, I find I kind of, I stand up a little bit straighter, and it's all, you know what I mean? It's like we start to size up each other because of the environment. Now, if I'm with a woman who's making me feel uncomfortable or stressed to be better and stressed to be what you want me to be is two different sets of stress. Right, because I could cussing and things like that is not good. So therefore, if you're making me a better person, and I should really be more endeared to you than if you're now just saying you ain't cooking, you ain't paying any bills, you ain't doing this. I say, well, what you're looking for is a sugar daddy. So therefore, if that person is making me feel that way, now if I could do it, I could do it. But if you're working as hard as you can, you're not a couch potato, and you say bringing in $10,000, and you want to live above your means, and you bringing in zero, but you want to live a $15,000 lifestyle, then go so.
So here's something I want to put on the table as well, right? So there was a philosopher, some of you all know Calvin and Hobbes is the comic. Right? So that's actually based on two English philosophers, John Calvin and Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes had a theory that equality is equality is the source of all men's misery. Because if two men want the same thing that they both cannot have, they'll fight. You understand? And he said equality, he said essentially men are equal because mental acuity and sharpness can be acquired. You could study. You could get better. And he said if somebody is bigger than you could go call your friends. You understand? And so you see, the equality of men is the reason why we never have peace. By the way, this is why he said that we need to have a state and the state has to have a sword, right? That's a political science 101, right? That's why the state needs to have guns to make sure that there is security, right? Which brings it to the point, right? We are willing to give up a certain amount of freedom to the state in order to feel secure. And I wonder if as men, how we present ourselves is based on how secure we feel in and of ourselves around certain people to be our true selves. Because part of the social contract is we are willing to give up a certain amount of freedom to have a certain amount of security. And I wonder if in our relationships, we're not really willing to be our full, true self unless we feel safe. You understand?
But Keron, is being your authentic self one particular character?
It doesn't have to be, no.
And that's what I'm saying. So do I understand that myself, being my authentic self, is X, Y, and Z? Like Johansen mentioned about red, white, and black jackets. They're different. So if I'm around you, I feel less stressed or not stressed at all, and I'm in this environment, I feel like, hey, you know what? I could just take off all my clothes and go and run down the road. That's how you're feeling in that moment. So you feel okay.
So then do that.
And that's what I'm saying.
And then I think that is your
authentic. Will get locked up, but I mean,
I think that's your authentic self there, because you made a good point there. You spoke about equality, right? And I don't think men at our core really embrace equality. Equality is not a masculine thing, you know. It's women, I think, just look for equality. Every man know that it have a hierarchy of things. Right?
Yeah,
every man know that, right? I know it have. I'm not a plumber, so I need to call a plumber because he are the hierarchy there, right? In a behavior change or psychology context, I might say, okay, I think I have some cloud there. In a producer, I don't know anything about music, so in that same KG is the man who, if you understand, I look into every man.
They could be willing to learn,
right? But every man know the hierarchy there. I think, and I don't know when this happened. Whenever men in general, let's say in the Western world, when we started subscribing to equality, I think is where we started to lose ourselves. Because when we started to subscribe to this equality thing, we started to mold and meander and submit right? We started to submit to a zeitgeist. We started to submit to a philosophy. We started to submit, and submission, for me, in most cases, and this case maybe it's fear, because you're saying, if we are afraid of losing something, so if I'm afraid that I ain't gonna get no sex from a woman, then I will change and become whatever I think. If I'm afraid I mightn't ever get married, or I'm afraid I mightn't have any children, then I will meander myself and acquiesce and become this thing that I am not, just to get it. So I think it's a
When it
matter
comes down
of
to
fear.
your reward, remember you spoke about reward, you know, about the brain or the person does something knowing that there's a reward. And if there's no
Right.
reward, then you're not going to get movement. So if I know I'm not going to get sex and I'm going to do what it takes to get sex, I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to acquiesce. And if not, then you know the result of that. There are repercussions. But this conversation, I'm going to let you finish there, Keron, but I'm just going to say, we could go on for, but there is
A lot of valid points, man.
There is TV time, and there's a lot of valid points, and you're always, in terms of the many other episodes to come where we discuss this, because this is not just this is it and done, but what I'd like us to present is one, just in our closing, what we really taken away from what is a man and why, and that performance, but to also understand that bottom line is, if we live in victim mentality and we're not being our true selves, then that could never be what a man should be, and masculinity in all the rest of it, whether if I don't know how to change a tire, if I'm willing to say, I own up to that, and at the admission of that, and the acknowledgement that I don't know to, but guess what? I feel for my own interest, these things are happening all the time for the security of my family or the environment, and to save money, etc. I need to go and learn. Then that is being a man.
Correct.
The willingness to learn and not being afraid to say, I don't know.
Yeah. On that note, I cannot change the tire. I mean, and I am willing to learn.
I can't change that tire either.
Yeah, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah?
You know who not to call.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, definitely calling her about. But the key things is what I was gonna say before I close. And I think this is what I was thinking. Right. I don't know if it's the same for you, or in terms of if you've lived with a woman, but for me, living with a female has in some ways been a pleasant interrogation of self, because they force you to get to know yourself better. So if there are 3 jackets in his cupboard, and there's a white and there's a black and there's a red, they're going to be like, why do you wear the red? And why do you like the black? And why do you like the white? And things that you've never thought of yourself, you're going to be like, they cause you to because and you know why they force you to get to know yourself? Because they're trying to get to know you. You understand? And sometimes when they're trying to get to know you, it forces you to realize, I don't even know me. You understand?
No lie.
So I realize that, but to be willing to enter into a space where I am okay, getting to know myself with another human, that's a position of trust, Dread. Like to be able to do that with somebody else, I trust you, Dread. Because if I don't feel safe around you, go on from me. I'm not telling you any of that, because I don't want you to be around when I get to know myself. You understand? Because you could use that against me.
And some will.
And some will. You understand? Will. I mean, like why just do that in bed, show and be like, well, something uncomfortable, and then next thing you break up and your business on the internet and on Instagram. Bro, if I don't love you like that, we're not doing this. You understand?
Well, that's what I would say, and I would say for me, I think that's a mistake. I would use the word mistake, or because I didn't know better in my life as a man, taking time for myself before involving myself in intimate relationship like that with women now. Because I agree that living with a woman and being with a woman would make you the introspection, and they would ask, and I say that is a good thing, because a woman would it's truth, a woman would say, tell me the truth now. So it make us force us, but before you even trust somebody and be vulnerable with somebody, you at least have to be some sort of level of comfort with yourself.
Exactly.
Because sometimes when you start to live with somebody, you didn't even live with yourself yet to know you even like the bed this way or like the bathroom this way, or you just squeeze the toothpaste at the bottom and she just squeeze the toothpaste in the middle. You don't even know what you like yet. So even in that discovery, the new discovery, sometimes that real difficult because you don't know. So I would encourage men, boys into men, learn yourself first. I mean, I don't know if we ever fully, perfectly know 100% of ourselves, but at least you're comfortable with yourself so that however you're displaying your masculinity with your boys, you're appearing, you're not appearing, you're reflecting your authenticity. However, you're showing your masculinity with women. At least it's authentic. And even if you're wearing different jackets, all the jackets at least is your authentic jackets, so that you know where to put it in different places.
Yeah, be comfortable in your own skin. You understand? And I think that's a huge point about internal security. And don't let anybody because when you enter into a relationship with somebody, they will interrogate who you are. You understand? And if you are not secure in yourself, you will feel attacked and you might lash out at them. So definitely, and part of what you just said there, in another way, another person would simply say, learn to love yourself for you as yourself. You understand? Instead of wishing that you were somebody else. Because if you don't love yourself and you are depending on someone else to love you,
Problems.
You're in problems before you start.
Problems, KG.
I mean, a lot of valid points, fellas. I really appreciate this episode. I think that everything came out of your mouth was on point. And I think it comes down to exactly what you say too, comfort. Same thing what Robert say, the fear aspect also too. And I think a lot of men living in fear and don't even understand that they are living in fear in all different ways. And I think that is that's like the first step to being a man, coming out of your comfort zone and understanding yourself and not living in fear.
Courage.
Being real, courage, being brave, being true. So yeah.
So, do we display differently among women? The truth is, we display differently amongst even men. We display differently wherever we are. That's because self is always changing. It's not one state. It is not evergreen. It's a constant state of change. And the only thing that we always say is constant is change. And so why is human behavior any different? What happens today is not what's going to happen tomorrow, and not what happened yesterday. And they say what's past is prologue. And there's always this this funny thing that I like, where you have an artist might perform and he may excel in certain cases, and you always turn around and say, well, yesterday's price isn't today's price, nor tomorrow's price. And it's the same thing with the person. So the person that you're with, and I think a lot of times why the woman or whoever your partner is or your family may question certain things and allow you to introspect is because they're seeing the changes and they're seeing the differences in what's happening with you, and might realize without, whether organically or subconsciously, to say, well, yesterday I like this and today I like this. So they themselves, it's a fluidity. They themselves are constantly adapting and learning you as you are trying to figure out yourself. Because if I like chocolate today and tomorrow I don't, I simply just do eat chocolate. I don't have to account to anybody for that to say, well, why now we're doing this? But that's life. And part of men, if we're to understand that masculinity and whether we display differently, is part of us really, I think, understanding and learning ourselves as other people learn. But to be true to that and not living the blame someone else and the victim mentality will certainly go a long way in understanding who self is and being true. Living
I have
the
an
truth.
exercise for the men that watching, right?
And close off with that one.
Right. A good way to find yourself is try to go 48 hours without telling a lie. Meaning, don't do anything you don't want to do. Because once you do something you don't want to do, you're lying. So if you want to talk to somebody 5 minutes and 5 minutes reach and you're talking to them 5 minutes and 10 seconds, you're lying. You gotta hang up the call. If somebody say, hey, let me get a drop in tongue now, you gotta tell them, nah, boy. Right? Try to go 48 hours without telling a lie.
I'm gonna try that.
And this is manhood. Thank you very much.
This is the Fire Princess Jalifa representing straight. We're on manhood, the spotlight. I'm gonna sing Hear You for the item. Rhythm up, now and put it. And one of the elders saying, talk to me, we would not be all the line of the tribe of Judah, the root of David had prevailed to open up the book and loose the 7 seals thereof. Hey, almost in the king. Hey, Selassie I the king. Hey, almost in the king. Hey, Selassie I the king. I mean, who ride up on the heavens, I a soldier, clothed in majestic, who will see Oja. From 2nd of November 1930, it's just a city, I read that is Ethiopia. The conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. Satama Sagana Layam Lakambisia. Direct descent of Solomon and Queen of Sheba. King Alpha and Omega Abuna Heli. Almost in the king. Heli. Selassie I the king. I mean, Heli. Almost in the king. Heli. Selassie I the king. Who comfort conquering to conquer, who will see Oja. Revelation chapter 6 it show us plain him ride up on the heavens by his name Oja. Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia. The Lord the excellent is see Oja. Lord of the abyss and heaven see Oja. Rastafari mean head creator. Him at the globe the scepter protector. Heli. Almost in the king. Heli. Selassie I the king. I mean, Heli. Almost in the king. Heli. Selassie I the king.
Manhood, brought you in part by Reboot, Super Farm and Solomon's Bespoke.